Greetings, my fellow degenerates. Today, I will be talking about the power of compounding and the advantage of time. My name is Rifky, and as always, I have zero certifications. You shouldn't listen to me, go seek a licensed professional financial advisor. I'm all just here to explain a couple of stuff and hopefully make things clear for my friends and family. So, before I start discussing about the topics of compounding, there's one disclaimer that I need to make, and it is that this video is very numbers heavy. So a lot of people, that will be a big turnoff for a lot of people, but just bear with me for 2 seconds. I'll try to make it as easy as possible to understand. So first things first, we need to establish some ground rules, and that is the numbers that we will use, because we need a consistent number to work with. Now, using the initial money of $1,000, which is attainable to most people, and using an interest rate of 5%, we will not be using any monthly contributions because we wanted to keep it fair and simple. Now, before talking about compound interest, we need to talk about simple interest. Now, the best way to explain how simple interest works is to use the previous number and put it into a 10-year time frame. Now, here's the 10-year time frame. Now, don't be alerted by the increasing amount of numbers on screen. Just so the things you need to know are very simple. Firstly, there's the amount of money you put in. And then secondly, there's the amount of money you get after 10 years. It's really simple. So if you put in $1,000 with an interest rate of 5% using simple interest, by year 10, you will have $1,500. Very simple. So now that we've established what simple interest is, we can go into compound interest. Now, what is compound interest? And it is simply the interest that you make generates more interest. So using this small picture I've taken from Google, if you were to have $1,000 with a 5% interest rate, by year 2 you would have $1,050, and by year 3 you would have $1,100. But actually, using compound interest, you get money from the $50 that you got during year 1. So you would actually get $1,102.05. So I'll explain it easier using leak terms for my fellow viewers. If you were an Irelia and you were to farm minions in lane, it would be slow at first, but then you could use the gold that you got from farming minions to buy items so that you can farm more effectively, and maybe get a couple of kills on the enemy champion so that you can complete your items, and you can snowball out of control until you see who the enemy top laner is and what champion he's playing, and then you realize that it's inevitable that you will get the defeat screen. But I digress. Using the previous numbers and comparing simple interest with compound interest, now I know this is doubling the amount of numbers that we used in simple interest, but just know that we initially put $1,000, and then pay attention to this red arrow because I know you're gonna pay attention. Using simple interest, by year 8 we would have gotten $1,400, but by year 7, using compound interest, we would have gotten, not only is it the same amount, but it's actually more than what we would get in year 8. And so using compound interest, in 10 years, you would get $128 more. And this is actually the power of compound interest. Now that brings us close to the first section of the video. Now the second section of the video is, why is time in the title? Because compounding is not in the title, it's actually the advantage of time. So it's very simple to explain why time is in the title, and it's because it's time to subscribe. On a more serious note, time is indeed your most valuable asset, and how you see it is going to be very different when I show you that there are things you can acquire in this world and there are things you can't acquire. You can always acquire more money, but you can never acquire more time. unless you're a time traveler, then stop watching the video. Now, to see the powers of time, using the same amount of initial money put in, we will use the case study of two examples here, using Steve and my friend Xuanzang, which many of you will be familiar with. Now, Steve here is 20 years old, while Xuanzang is 30 years old. Now, let's see what happens when they put in $1,000 with an interest rate of 5% and they wait till they're both 60 years old, which isn't technically possible, but we're trying to look at what happens when you invest 10 years sooner. So to make it easier, I'll do Xuanzang's number first. So by the time Xuanzang reaches 60 years old, she would have had $4,321, meaning she 4x'd her money. And when Steve will reach 60 years old, he will actually 7x his money, getting around $7,000. Now this is the power of time. This is the true reason why people say that it's better to invest earlier than later. As you can see in this graph of Xuanzang and Steve, compounding makes it so that your graph goes on a curve, and the curve gets steeper the more you progress. That is why a lot of people say that time in the market beats timing the market. Now, there are a couple of common examples that people have used over the years, and the most common one that I see on YouTube is the first $100,000 is the hardest. And that is true, because when you look at this graph, that's totally unrelated with the previous numbers. This is the one where you give monthly contributions. The numbers will be in the description below. So if you're using this chart, and you can see that here in year 9, you get your first $100,000. So 0 to 9, you get $100,000. That's 9 years. But then to reach $200,000, it only takes 5 years. That's almost half the time. And to reach $300,000, it only takes 5 years from 7 years. So 9, 7, 5. It decreases by 2 years to get to the next 100,000. And this is mainly because of compounding. And as you can see, the graph only gets steeper from there. So to boil it down, I'll actually just use the tier list system to explain the factors of investing so that it's easier for you kids to understand. So in S tier, in my opinion, is time spent. Now, time spent in the market beats timing the market, and certainly more time beats more money put in. Of course, money put in is, or money contributed is in the A tier category, along with interest rate, because these are all equally important, but I think time spent can beat money contributed if you spend enough time in the market. Now, there is a separate category here called trends, and it's in B tier because anything you invest in, it'll follow trends. The most recent example is in tech stocks. They are very trendy right now, and their price reflects that. And there is actually one more factor that I'd like to talk about in this video, just to mention it briefly, but I'm not going to elaborate on it. And it's called risk, which not a lot of people account for, but arguably sometimes it's more important than time spent in. But that will be discussed at a later video. Thank you for watching, and as always, do the normal YouTube stuff. Hopefully this video has helped someone, and see you next time.